And because I'm an adventurer, the way that I feel about life is that it's meant to be lived. You're meant to try things. You may not succeed, but you might as well give it a go. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you do something else. That's the thing about business. You're going to fail at stuff. It's going to suck. But you try to do something else. But that's where you have to figure out, well, how do you make something shake? How do you make the change to start seeing clients or start seeing the change in your business? And that's where leveraging connections, meeting other athletes through athletes I had helped previously, and really starting to build those bridges. But it took time.
Welcome to another episode of Everyday Leadership. And I'm going to come through with another amazing guest, which I do today. She is going to introduce herself shortly. And just before she does that, I just want to say that I'm looking forward to this. Combined a number of different areas that I enjoy when it comes to sports and coaching and transferable skills. And you know what? I'm not saying too much right now. Julia, how are you doing? And can you introduce yourself to the guests, to the people listening?
Oh, man. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this conversation as well. But to hop right into it, so I am a career and leadership development coach, and I own the company Rock Career Development. And what we focus on is helping athletes and transitioning job seekers to translate their existing skills into high-paying, in-demand careers. So really focusing on that career transition, especially for athletes who may be struggling to find their next career play after sports. So really helping them to understand what their career identity can be afterwards and finding new opportunities. I've been in the career coaching game now unofficially since 2006 and more officially since 2013. And my passion is helping Black and Brown people. Not saying I don't help everyone, but my primary group is helping Black and Brown folks and helping to level the playing field for them. So that's a little bit about me. I guess I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I guess that's the other thing. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I could throw that in there, I guess, But
you're also a co-author of the book, The Six-Figure Athlete, right?
Yes. So The Six-Figure Athlete. So it's a book that really is talking to athletes, helping them to understand the skills that you have, they can be monetized and find you new opportunities. And so I'm really excited about that book. So it launched in December of 22, so you can get it right now. But it's really focusing on letting athletes know, hey, the skills that you have are valuable. Even if you haven't had a professional career or entrepreneurship career, you still have plenty of opportunity to monetize your skills. So
I think one of the reasons why I was really fascinated about this conversation is you actually do what you talk about, because when you're moving athletes from just being athletes into more than just athletes and building a new career, it's around transferable skills. But even you creating this business, it's also transferable skills because you have a background in finance.
Yes. So I'm a corepreneur. So I tell people that, I do have a day job and my background is finance and accounting. And so I actually run a division of a company in oil and gas here in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And so all of these skills that I've learned, these are things that I'm able to leverage in growing and expanding my business. So I'm walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
I think for me, that makes such a massive difference, because you get a lot of people talk about, oh, I do this, I'm a coach. And it's like, yeah, but you've done it. Like, you've everyone been in it. You don't understand what it's like. You don't understand some of those feelings, those anxieties that people get, those fears that people have. So being able to be in it and be like, actually, I've done it. So some of the questions I'm asking you, I understand what it takes to draw them out of you, but also understand how it helps you to move are super, super important. But just before we lean more into, two questions I always tend to ask. And the first one is, what was a younger you like? And I'm going to go for a 10-year-old version of Julia.
Man, the 10-year-old version of Julia. So let me lead with, I didn't have any sports abilities. So I wasn't the kid who was playing the sports. So I just want to lead with that. I was a bookworm and just curious about building knowledge. I love to read, but someone who was slightly insecure, who was focus on trying to please everybody and do all the right things as a 10-year-old, right? Whatever your parents asked of you. I grew up in a West Indian household. Shout out to any Bajans out there. But yeah, so, at the age of 10, I was trying to soak up all the knowledge I could and, but trying to please everybody, trying to be the perfect kid. And so I wish I could go back, talk to 10-year-old Julia to let her know that you turn out all right, even if you don't please everybody. So you might as well not waste your time doing that as a kid.
Wow. Can you think back to when the transition for you actually happened? Because I listen to you obviously right now talking, other bits and pieces I know that we're going to touch on. You seem you come across quite confident. You're in your bag, you know what you're talking about. You're in that zone. When did that change happen for you? Being
100% honest, it wasn't until probably about college or after I graduated college, my first job, I finally got out of wanting to please everybody and finally deciding what I wanted to do. Personal side, at the time I was dating somebody my parents didn't really like, right? And I had to go and try to go against the grain a little bit. But it was at that time where I said, it's up for me to live my life and make whatever mistakes I'm going to make. And I'm either going to figure it out or I'm not. And so I would say, that, I guess that's what, 21, 22. So, hopefully some folks are finding it out easier. But, even when I was in college, I was still trying my best to be all the things my parents wanted to be and my community wanted me to be and blah, blah, blah. But finally, when I got my first job and I started paying my own bills, I'm like, you know what? It's about time for me to do my own thing and live my own life and sink or swim.
Wow. You got bills, you're making your money. It's all good. I'm gonna step into that.
Lean into the adulthood. Lean in, you know what I mean?
So how did because I think and I've spoken to a number of athletes on this show, and I'm curious as to, that's why I kind of asked you that question. Some of the things that they go through as well when they're making that transition is around that. Like, who am I? What is my identity? What am I about? Who am I doing this for? So some of the questions that you just kind of touched on, some of what they go through, how do you help them to unravel some of that and help them to really understand that they can actually build a new life that's based on what they want to do rather than what other people have told them they had to do from data?
Yeah, so one of the big things is taking a step back and asking themselves, what's important to them now? The problem is when you're living for other people, you're always thinking about what's important to everyone else. What do they need? What do they want? What makes them happy, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the fundamental things we discuss is what's important to you right now? What is the most important thing to you right now? And if you strip away your titles, your awards, your accolades, how would you want to be seen? How would your friends and family describe you outside of the sport that you had? Are there things that you wanted to pursue when you were younger but chose not to? What was it that was interesting about those things? Because once you start to unpack those different areas, like light bulbs start to go off, because for so long, they haven't considered what they want or what was important to them or what they even liked. It was always about what someone else thought, whether they have to keep up the appearance or they have to keep the money flowing or whatever it might be. So it's really starting at that clarity and that mindset as to what do you want? What's important to you? Where do you see your life going? Where do you see happiness for you now outside of your sport? And sometimes that takes some digging because they haven't looked at that before. But whether it's thinking or reflecting on their faith or, the experiences they have had maybe after leaving their sport and people they've interacted with, it may take some time, but we're able to unpack that because it says, hey, you know what? I don't have to keep playing to be happy. I don't have to keep playing in order to make money, right? And, and so that helps them to kind of start getting past that loss of identity, because if all you've thought about is that I'm an athlete, I know how to go out on the field or I know how to get on the court and play, that's one thing. But it's like when you start to think about there are other things that I actually like. There are other things that make me more than an athlete. There are things that people rely on me for outside of my athletic ability. Once you start to unpack that, the conversation gets a little bit easier.
Wow. That goes in deep. That's really unraveling the different layers upon layers upon layers, because for some people, depending on how long they've been in the game for, there's been years that they've been doing this. So whether it's from college or even into pro sports, this is who they are. This is what they're about. And yes, I'm curious to understand then, how can I get past how my friends and my family in particular have viewed me? Because I'm curious, actually, have you ever had any athletes who maybe got injured and therefore they lost that, and now all of a sudden they're trying to get a job and you're helping them out to get 6 figure job, but people start to look down on them, and that could even start to bring up some other feelings around the way that I'm trying to do the right thing here. You're looking down on me because I'm no longer this thing that you kind of view me here.
Yeah, and that's a tough mental space. So I have had some clients who have chosen to go back and maybe work harder with their therapist, because some of it is like, it can't be worked out in career coaching. Some of that is pre-work that needs to happen in therapy. We're very open and honest about that. Like, it may be that there are other things that need to be unpacked. But in terms of trying to mentally get past that, I always ask them about, this is a journey that you're going through by yourself. It's easy to say, well, my family wanted this and my friends wanted this, but you're the person who's sitting here, whether it's the person that was injured or the person who, your contract has come to an end and it's not renewed. You're the person who's going through this. And so looking at what other people have said or what they're looking down on you for, it's like, you're still the only person who's going through this journey. And at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do in order to survive, to pay, to provide for your family, to lead a life. You can sit here and wallow in those feelings, or you can make the decision that it's not what, as my mom would say, it's not what they call me, it's what I answer to. My mom gave me that when I was a child, and that has stuck with me, and that's something I share with my clients, is that it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So if you're worried about and listening to, well, I used to be this player, those are still things that are true about you. Those are things you should be proud of. But this is your next chapter. And so where we need to shift our focus is to, what do you want to be known for now? What do you want to be seen for now? Because people can laugh as you're making this transition, but wait until you establish that brand, you build that company, you find that job where you're adding value. When you look at all these Fortune 500 CEOs, so many of them have sports backgrounds. There are people who are making $1 gazillion in corporate who have sports backgrounds. So it's not like this is the end of the road for you. It's a new beginning. So it's about shifting that mental focus.
And for you then, how did you, I guess, shift that mental focus? Because like I said, you got background in finance, you're still doing that right now. Then you've got this company that you've created in career coaching, which again, seem like two completely different lanes to be operating in. But yet you're operating in both of them. How have you done that?
I think because I've been able to find something that is passion driven for me, which is my company, and obviously it then translated into revenue, because when you're passionate about something, you go harder and then money comes from it. But this is a way for me to feed my passion and my desire to serve others. But when it comes to finance and accounting, it's just something that I like. I grew up as a kid liking numbers and spreadsheets because numbers always make sense. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. There's no fluff or anything around that. Is 1 + 1 = 2, no matter what language you put it in. And so for me, that's allowed me to continue to do something I enjoy and build additional skills, because now being a senior manager, I've been able to build additional leadership skills, hone my craft some more in terms of all the things that I'm telling my clients. These are things that I myself am also continuing to develop and experience, so that it allows me to resonate with them, because not everybody's starting at the entry level. I have clients who are in leadership roles. Perhaps they've been out of sports for a while and they were able to transition into something, but now they're stepping into that next level of leadership and they're not sure how to do that. Being able to share real lived experiences has made a huge difference. So I've been able to keep, my interests and my passions, but then also leverage one to learn from so I can help the other.
Do you think it's important when picking a coach to have someone with lived experience, or is it possible to work with someone without lived experience?
I think it's a mix, because for me, I don't have a sports background. So it's easy to say, well, should I have a career coach from sports who's never played sports? But I do think it's important for the person to have a certain level of understanding of where you're coming from. Because if the person is a novice and they don't have any understanding of the field, it's hard for them to speak in a language that relates to you. So even if they don't have a lived experience, it's important for you to vet them to understand, can this person relate to what I have going on? If I say something to them, is it completely foreign? Do they not understand? Do they have a network of people potentially that they can connect me to who are at least in that field, even if they haven't done it? So even if they haven't had a lived experience, there's got to be some tie point or some understanding to make the conversation actually meaningful and helpful. Because if you can't speak to me or relate to me, it's like, where's this coaching relationship going? Because I can't really benefit.
I completely agree. So you don't know this as well, but I've got a finance background. So
Finance people unite.
So I can completely understand where you're actually coming from and looking at it. Actually, it makes sense to have at least something. Though, what's the common ground? That for me is always key. Like when you're meeting clients, is can we get on? Can I challenge you? Can I pull this out of you? And a lot of that, you need someone who has lived everything that you've done, because that's never going to work. But at least had some elements to that speak into that. Because if not, you're going to ask questions from a lens and a view that you just can never really relate to. And it just kind of feels like this is not necessarily working. But that's just down to the person you kind of selected, isn't it?
Absolutely. And just speaking to my experience now living abroad outside of the U.S., I've talked to some players who have now gone overseas and they're living in a foreign environment and trying to function there. And so I've been able to share even that lived experience. So maybe I haven't played sports overseas, but I know what it's like to start from scratch and maybe not speak the language and trying to find your footing. So you've got a new job and you're trying to find your footing in a new country. That's a lot of new to try to manage. And so again, like you said, what's that common ground that you can speak to so the person says, hey, Julia knows where I'm coming from. You know, I'm happy to continue the conversation versus saying, this is not really going to work. She doesn't even know what I'm dealing with. There's no way for her to be able to provide any sort of solutions if she doesn't even know where I'm starting from.
Why'd you decide to move to Argentina and take up what sounds like an amazing role? But like you said, new country, different language, different environment.
My company, they came to me and said, hey, are you still interested in an assignment abroad? And I said, absolutely, sign me up. And because I'm an adventurer, you know, the way that I feel about life is that it's meant to be lived. You're meant to try things. You may not succeed, but you might as well give it a go. And so I said, I don't speak Spanish. I've only been to Buenos Aires twice. And, I really did enjoy it, but I've never really spent any prolonged period of time here. But why not? If it doesn't work out, I'll just move back. That was kind of the rationale behind the decision. You just gotta try something new.
You ever get scared? Because it seems like you're someone who's got that growth mindset down. You can step outside your comfort zone real easy. But do you have instances, occasions where you're like, let me think about that one. Rather than really beat to it, let me just kind of slow that process down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think with even some business decisions that I may have wanted to make or leaps that I wanted to make, you've got to, when I transitioned to helping athletes in 2021, because I used to coach corporate professionals before I made that leap, it took me some months to make that decision. I was like, should I not? But at some point I had to push through to say, if you're being called to serve a different group of people, you can't live in fear. And that's the same thing with moving. When I first graduated from grad school, my sister, she told me something, because I was like, Dale, I'm afraid. My sister's name is Danielle. I said, I'm afraid of moving to Houston and starting over by myself. And she looked at me and said, you are the strongest person I know. You're going to be fine. And when I get scared, I lean into that. I replay her voice in my head, because you have those moments. So when I wanted to transition in my business and I was just like, should I do it? It's like, you're the strongest person. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you do something else. That's the thing about business. You're going to fail at stuff. It's going to suck. But you try to do something else. And even being here, I live in a place where it's like on a continent where I don't know that many people. But you've got to be willing to kind of lean into that fear. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but otherwise I wouldn't survive because I'd be afraid all the time. So it's like, you've got to lean into it and say, what's the worst that could happen? What is the absolute worst that could happen? And deal with that piece mentally, because it makes everything a little bit easier, a bit easier.
Has the worst that could happen ever happened?
Yeah, the worst that could happen did happen. So when I first started helping athletes, there was nobody calling. There was nobody calling. So it was a hard grind getting the business going again, because it's like I had shifted focus, and it was like you let go of certain revenue streams because I let go of doing resumes and let go of doing other things. And so the fear of, am I not going to have any clients? What's going to happen? It happened. Real talk. But that's where you have to figure out, well, how do you make something shake? How do you make the change to start seeing clients or start seeing the change in your business? And that's where leveraging connections, meeting other athletes through athletes I had helped previously, and really starting to build those bridges. But it took time. I know a lot of people like to talk about, well, my business is this and I've done all these things. But in real life, you hit a point where clients are not there. The roster is not full, and it's hard. And so I would say that's probably a time when the worst could happen. It did happen. And so I tell people I'm grateful for my 9-to-5 and that opportunity. Too often we preach about either or, but having a 9-to-5 where I had an income was helpful as I was making that transition and things got tight in terms of the client roster. You were able to still provide and take care of things and shift into the business with intention and work my way back up to having a client roster.
So is that something that you would recommend to people? Because we live in an interesting time where it's either go all in your business, forget the 9-to-5, or go all in your corporate career and just do that and focus, don't get distracted. And being able to handle both. Like, what's someone who's done it and who's in it, what do you advise people?
So I tell people I'm a 9-to-5 evangelist. The reason is because these people with the entrepreneurship just go all in. They will have you broke without benefits for no reason. If you have a 9-to-5 that allows you the flexibility you need to start to stand up your business, don't get rid of it. Keep your benefits, keep your paycheck, because it helps you to avoid making desperation decisions. Well, people say, well, no, those are the decisions that build character. Listen, when you have to eat and pay the light bill, you're forgetting about character and all those things. You're just making whatever decision you have to keep the lights on. And sometimes that may not be in the best interest of you or your business. And it can have ripple effects down the road for your business's foundation. So I tell people, if you can keep your 9-to-5 and still grow your business, work with that. I know it seems like, oh, that's a lot to do, but it's worth it because, again, you can be intentional about how you grow your business, the direction it takes without just trying to do things to get from point A to point B and out of desperation. So I'm a 9-to-5 evangelist. Keep those benefits. Keep your paycheck, keep your 401k money. Listen, I don't want these entrepreneurs in the streets to keep people broke without a retirement plan for no good reason. It doesn't make sense.
Of that. It's a real talk. That's some real talk. But I think that's what people need to hear though. Like, you can get sold a dream and the dreams sound charming. But the reality is, actually, it is not easy. Like, running your own business is not easy, like you kind of talked about. Where you got no one knocking the door, you got bills to pay. Like, what are you going to do then? And there are also a lot of things that you can actually learn and leverage from a 9-to-5 that can then go into your business. So it helps you even from a training ground as well. So love that real talk. And go on.
No, I was just going to say, absolutely. I mean, the thing about it is your 9-to-5 is literally, you're being paid to learn. And if people would switch their thinking about it, it's like, oh, this 9-to-5, I hate it, I'm going to do my business. It's like, you're being paid to learn. If you would lean into that, take the training courses, get on the projects, do all again, you're getting a paycheck to learn all the things that you may need to help you form your business. So shift your thinking. People say you're building someone else's dream. No, you're building yours. You're taking the time to learn what you need to build yours when the time comes. But it's about how we think about it. So like I said, I'm going to keep preaching the 9-to-5 gospel as long as there's breath in my body.
One point you made earlier on is you made the decision to focus solely on athletes because you knew that was your calling. How did you know that was your calling?
Yeah, so I got into career coaching way back when, helping professionals. And I got into it because I saw that Black and brown professionals were not getting the resources that they needed to really thrive when it came into professional settings. So even when I was going on doing career fairs for my job, I would see the stark difference in how Black and brown professionals were coming across when they were speaking to me versus non-Black candidates. And I said, it's not that their resume isn't solid. It's not that they don't have the skills, but there's something off about how they're able to present and position themselves. And so that's why I got into that space. And so fast forward to 2021, when I first came in contact with an athlete to help, and we worked together, I realized that I was called to help a population of folks who are underserved from a career perspective. And thank God in 2021, there's so many career coaches out there helping professionals, first time in the workforce and all that kind of stuff. But back then when I started, it wasn't the case. So now this has become an opportunity for me to go back to my roots of helping a population that needs it most, because there aren't that many career coaches in this space looking to help athletes. And again, like I said, I know that my calling on this earth is to help the underserved.
There is a decisiveness in the way that you articulate that, like, this is me now. This is my lane. This is my journey. This is what I've been called in to do. And assuredness, that's what it is. It's assuredness. It's that assuredness in what you have. And the reason why that I like and the reason resonates actually is a lot of times when you start doing your thing, it is hard to define yourself and be like, no, this is me. Remember, like you said, there are times a lot of things you step into nowadays, there's so many of people doing it, and you can be still stuck in, but I want to be different. I want to, but if I go down that lane, am I going to be too niche? Am I going to get clients, or do I stay here and go abroad? You made that decision to be like, no, this is my lane and I'm going to ride it out. And at first you tried it, it wasn't easy, but you stuck with it, and to the point where you've been able to build something out of it, and actually this is now you, and you're one of the go-to people in this space and place. I guess I want to learn more about your thought process around that, being assured in this is it, being assured in even when it wasn't working out, keeping the faith and keeping going with it, and knowing that actually, let me not deviate, because it's easy to do. When things aren't working out, like, I was a wrong lane, let me go down a different lane. You stayed with it. What was it that helped you to be able to do that?
I thought about the things that I had already done. So, for example, I was thinking like, should I go back to writing resumes to help bridge the gap? But I realized I didn't enjoy resume writing. It just wasn't a thing, because I did it for 16 years. And at 16 years, it's like I'm tapped out. So I'm a certified professional resume writer. Yes. And so I did it for a long time. And so I realized, I said, that's not the lane that's for me. And then I took some time to think about, what am I really good at as a career coach? I can coach people on a variety of things from a career perspective because I've been in the game so long, but what is it that I'm really good at? And it's career transitions. It's helping people to find the clarity they need to step into, their next career chapter, whatever it might be. And so I could have wavered to go do something else, but it's like, but is that really what my, for lack of a better word, zone of genius is? Is that really where I'm called to do? I don't think that I'm called to be a jack of all trades. And I felt that if God wanted me to do something different, he would have put something different on my heart, right? Because I'm a firm believer that God has designed my purpose and where he wants me to be. And so if there's something else he wanted me to do, it would have been revealed to me. And so that's the assuredness that I had, is that I'm taking the steps forward to help the underserved. And as things change, I'll listen. But for now, I know that career transitions is where I should be and where I can add the most value. And so that's where I'm sticking to. And like I said, I also thought about what's the stuff that I did that I don't really want to go do again, and it's easy to revert back to that stuff. But if you've grown past something, you should lean into that.
Staying vigilant and staying purposeful is never easy. But like I said, when you feel like you've been called into something, there's the gifts and talents that you've been given. It takes some time. I always go back to you plant and harvest in completely different seasons. And there are times when you're trying to merge everything together, and that can then leave you completely off track and you end up with absolutely nothing. So I love that. Listen, there's that tenacity. Like, I'm going to grit it out and I'm going to ride it out, be a lot more resilient. With athletes though, I guess one of the things that can help them out is networks, relationship building, all those different bits and pieces. Is that something that you found naturally to them? Because for a lot of them, that's what they've had to do in their careers. Or is that still a struggle because now it's a struggle in a new field, in a new lane?
Yeah, so I find that different athletes, they deal with it differently, but you have to think for many of them, they had built-in networks that whether it was from coaches to trainers to teammates to, and then for professionals, you had people that were already around them, agents, brands, all that kind of stuff. When you're transitioning into a new space, you've got to be able to start those conversations. They're not necessarily built in. And so some are better at it than others, but it does take some time getting used to you now starting to have to drive the conversations and really start to build those relationships from scratch versus being able to necessarily just kind of lean into the network that you already have. But that's what I've told them. I said, if you've got a network, start with the people you already know. Start with these conversations. You don't necessarily have to go cold into a new industry and try to find somebody. Who do you know that can already connect you? Because that's one of the things that athletes bring with them that many professionals don't have. It's like you already have a network of people that you're connected with so that you can hone your skills bit by bit. But these are people that can already open doors for you. But for sure, for some of them, it's challenging because, again, you don't have a built-in network in the new industry. So you actually have to start these conversations by yourself if you don't have somebody who can connect you. And it can be challenging because it's different from how it was in sports.
What if you hate networking? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of network events and you go through that. So, like, what's your take on that? Like, you're not a big networker, but obviously you need to do it. You need to grow, you need to get out there. How do you help people like other athletes, people like myself, to navigate that?
Yeah, so when it comes to networking, it doesn't have to be going to networking events. Hi, hello. You don't have to go and do that, right? That's not for everybody. So I always say, who do you want to know and why? Who do you want to know and why? Figure out, do you have anybody in between the who you want to know and you? Because if you have someone that you can talk to, who can maybe build a connection for you, start a conversation, that's a way to kind of ease your way into it. The next way is that, let's say you don't know anybody and you're just starting cold. Again, doing the hi is not great, but it's about reaching out and saying, hey, I see that you have such and such position or whatever it is at this company. If you have 15 minutes to chat, I'd love to talk to you more about your experience. And here's what I'm doing. It's less than about you trying to get something transactionally and trying to rack up business cards, but genuinely getting to build connections and relationships with people. People love talking about themselves. So if you give somebody 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes for them to just go on about themselves, they're going to jump at the opportunity many times. And so it's about changing the way that you approach it. It's not just about, I've got a network and I hate it. It's about, who do I need to know and why? And what's a disarming way I can reach out to that person? So is it somebody that's already in my circle? Or is it somebody that I can just ask a question to say, hey, I saw that you posted this, or I saw that you're in this position. I'm doing this now. I would love to talk to you for 15 minutes if you have time. That way you're bringing it down to this person is here and I'm hoping they talk to me. It's like, hey, I actually saw that you're doing this. I'd love to talk to you for 15 minutes. It puts you on an even playing field. So it takes that pressure off of you to try to be perfect in the networking conversation and know what to say and put on the fake smile. So again, I've talked a lot about mindset shifts, but that's really a critical way to do it.
I got in there, I've built, cultivated, developed a network. And to your point, needing to utilize those relationships that you have, those networks that you have. But then some people be like, yeah, but I don't want to reach out to that person in case they say no. So whether it's pride, whether it's ego, whatever it is, it's like there's now that push that you need to go through to tap into that network. Is that something that you've ever felt and had to navigate, or something that some of your clients have to deal with as well, to leverage a network properly?
Yeah, so this is where tough love for myself and to my clients has come in. It's like, well, I don't really want to. Okay, well, how bad do you want it then? It's just that simple. So you can sit there and be like, I don't want to reach out. I don't know what they're going to say. The worst they can say is no, and you're no worse off. So that's where I give the tough love, because You can read all the assessments and do all the questionnaires online about your networking style, but at a certain point, you have to say the success and the goals that I have are bigger than my fear, are bigger than my pride, are bigger than my ego. And so that's where you have to tell yourself, I'm going to reach out whether I like it or not, because this is too important. And so I check my clients all the time. How bad do you want it? If you don't want it, that's fine. But if you want it, you've got to be willing to take that step. And the same thing has happened to me when I've made connections online. LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. And I've kind of hesitated, should I reach out? I don't know what they'll say. But I decide to reach out. And it's like, I want to make this connection. It's important for me and my growth and for my business development. Sometimes they don't respond. That's okay. Other times they do. But that's the thing about your goals. You can't tiptoe around your goals. You can't let pride or fear hold you back from your goals, because you're going to look back when you're 60 or 70 and say, man, I wish I had just done it. Why wait till you get there? Do it now.
Good talk. So what are your goals then? I'm curious.
Man, so besides having a farm in Barbados, where my parents live, so that's the retirement plan. That's a retirement plan. But my goal is to build an agency that employs a number of different career coaches who are specializing in the career transition space, because I think that needs more focus, because people are stuck without transitioning for a number of different reasons, whether it's fear or something else. And so I want, and kind of like, I call it my little army of people to help in the career transition space, with that being our niche focus. And my goal is to expand my speaking, whether it's through corporations, universities, because this message of setting yourself up for success when it comes to your career and making the right transition, it's too important to have fade into the background, because with all the layoff talk and all these other things, there's so much anxiety out there that people are having about their careers and staying stuck in careers that they don't enjoy, that they no longer feel valued in. And that fear mongering is keeping people in toxic places. And so leveraging my voice to speak to broader groups and organizations is another goal of mine, to help, like I said, evangelize the message.
You think it's smart to stay in those spaces right now with so much anxiety in society? Or do you think actually, maybe it might be time for you to utilize the space to move on? Because some people are thinking, well, there are no jobs out there. Some people are getting laid off. Obviously, it's a lot harder. But then there's another school of thought that says, well, actually, no, there are companies are still recruiting and hiring. So which one are you leaning to?
So because I do the research, I'm leaning into the side that says you can still transition, and this is a space to stay in. There's so much fear mongering with the cherry picked stats that are out there. And sure, there are plenty of places that are laying off. There are plenty of tech companies and Armageddon, right? But when you look at the research, there are plenty of other job roles that are growing. There are plenty of other opportunities and industries that are growing. And so if you have a different interest, and there's still other tech companies that may be hiring besides the ones that are letting people go. So there's getting outside of the cherry pick stats. It's like there's still a wealth of opportunity. And again, this is a cycle. Anybody who's been in business knows that there is a cycle. Everyone's not to be laying off in perpetuity. So if you wait until things rebound, you may be sitting here longer than you should be. This is the time for you to groom yourself, to understand what you want, and then see where the opportunity may be for you. So I'm leaning in. I'm still very bullish as we talk in like the stock market. I'm still bullish on the job market, because there's a lot of opportunity out there for folks to tap into, but they've just got to get the clarity first and have the right strategy.
You talked about sort of things that limit our success, which I wanted to kind of double click on. What are some of those things that you've seen, especially as a Black person navigating the corporate space?
Well, I think there's two sides to it that I've seen personally, not just in talking to clients, but in my own career and the careers of those that I've worked with. There's pieces of it that's self-inflicted. Some of it I've seen is that there's the mindset of, I'm just coming to work. I don't need these people to be my friends. I don't care. These people are too nosy. They're all in my business. And many times, unconsciously ostracizing ourselves from the organization, whether it's, for whatever the reason is, it's the fact is if you're not seen as a team player, you're not participating, or people don't see you as part of the organization, as part of the team, it's harder for you to ascend through the ranks. Right or wrong, it's just the facts when it comes to the career progression in corporate America specifically. Also, if sometimes when it comes to mentorship, there's a piece that's on the organization, but sometimes I've spoken with folks and it's like, well, have you reached out to this person? Have you sought people who are, higher up in the organization who may have some of the skills that you could learn from? Many times people haven't. And so it's about, how do you see your career? Is it just a job for you? Or do you truly see yourself growing and thriving and seeking to achieve to a certain level? So that's one thing that I've seen. But then if you flip it on the corporation side, or kind of on the corporate America side, there's a lot of institutionalized things that limit our career success. One is just the very lack of opportunity for Black and brown folks at the most senior levels of leadership, right? People promote who look like them, who speak like them, who are their friends, right? And so many times the people who look like me don't get those opportunities. It's also access to resources and mentors and sponsors, right? Many times folks are brought in, Black and brown folks are brought into organizations, but no one's reaching out to them to understand how things are going for them, making sure that they have the right navigation, onboarding, they know how to work in the group. Whereas I know that white counterparts, they have people from their school reaching out. They have people from their dad's friend played golf with them 20 years ago, and that person's reaching out. So it's a different kind of built-in network that many other ethnic groups may have that I've seen for Black and brown folks that they don't experience. And then I've also seen that many times we're held to such a high bar for whether it's promotions or raises or the expectations. And, I've had to fight for Black employees in performance assessment meetings because they were being judged on a different scale than someone who had the same performance. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, they should be at the same place. Why is he being pushed down lower? So these are true things that I've seen from a corporation perspective that can limit our success. So it's I'm not going to put it all on corporate. I'm not going to put it all on the individual, but there's two sides to what's limiting our success.
So in those instances then, when you got the system that's doing this then, and then you now got the individual on the other side of things where we can also live in ourselves, which one do you work on? Do you focus on, obviously, what you can control, which is the individual? But then if that's the case, you're leading into a system that says, well, you're only ever going to get this far in theory, just based on general. Obviously, there's some people who make all the way to the top, but very generalistically speaking, isn't that quite like disheartening? And that's why people be like, actually, no, it just makes perfect sense for me just to work for myself rather than operate in the 9-to-5 world.
So the way that I'll answer that question is, it's like how I tell people it's the corporate dope game. You've got to navigate the corporate dope games. And so
what's the report?
But if you really think about it, it's like the dope game. There are no friends in the dope game, but you got to know how to navigate. So let's say that they're just like, oh, this system is against me. Okay, but you're here now and you still have to pay the bills. So how do you navigate? How do you make the connections with the people who don't look like you? How do you make sure that you're building the relationships out? Many of the people that have advocated for me in my corporate career for me to get the positions I've had have not been Black people, right? It hasn't been Black people. So the question is, how do you find people who are willing to advocate on your behalf? Are there organizations out there? Because not all organizations are bad. There are organizations out there that truly lean into diversity and trying to create a different culture and a different structure. And then what are the skills that you have that are invaluable to the organization that if it walks out the door, they would be, SOL, right? So how is it that you can then make yourself an indispensable resource? How is it that you can make connections with the right people? And again, who aren't going to look like you. And that's the one big thing that I've told folks is that your network can't just be full of Black and brown people. That doesn't make sense. If we're the ones who are disadvantaged, having a bunch of us in your network doesn't get you there. There should be some of us, but you should definitely make sure that you have white people who are in your corner, who are willing to speak on your behalf because they're in the rooms that you can't get in. They're making the money that you haven't made yet. And like it or not, it's the truth. And so again, working in that system that you have is a way for success. Because thinking about entrepreneurship, I can just go work for myself. Where do you think all that venture capital money is coming from? It's not Black people that have all that venture capital. Some do, but the majority of folks who are investing in businesses don't look like you. So no matter what system you're going after, there's always going to be inequity and disadvantages. It's about how do you navigate in a smart way so that you can still get ahead.
I think that speaks powerfully to, like you mentioned earlier on, but that's the power of like sponsorship. There's people in rooms and spaces and places where you currently do not reside in, where they can speak your name, they can socialize what you do with other people. That's the reality that's going to open up those opportunities for you, but you have to be willing to build those relationships. Rather than like, I won't talk to them. Like, they don't know me, they don't get me, they don't understand me. Yeah, but I guess it's about finding the right people who do. Because we meet on that human level, it can make a fundamental difference. And there are times when, unfortunately, we meet at other levels, and that way you get to know who that person is, and you be like, well, that's not my kind of people. So it's not like a blanket brush for everyone. It's just like, that's just based on where they're from. But it's about being smart and, like you say, playing the game. You have to know how to play the game.
You have to know how to play the game. And there's so many people who want to try to make all of this happen during that, that work hour. Like, if I just do my job, I'm going to do well, and they just have to recognize me for my work. No, they don't. They don't have to. That's their company. They don't have to recognize a damn thing. So, like it or not, they don't have to. How else can you supplement that? So that's where I talk about whether it's going to the after work events or going to the special meetings, getting on the special projects and so forth, because those are when conversations are happening and deals are made and so forth, not just in your base 9 to 5 hours. I will say that there are opportunities that I have gotten, and I know for a fact that because I went to a specific event and met with some of the senior managers, and I stayed and I chatted with everybody, and that's how people knew my name. They knew my work, but they didn't really know me. They hadn't met me. And so they met me in person. They saw how inquisitive I was. They saw what I knew. That was enough for them to be willing to speak up on my behalf. And I know that people say, well, that's just playing politics and that's just whatever the case is. But when it comes to working in capitalism as a whole, politics is always going to be a part of it. If you think that you're not going to have to play politics at some point in order to achieve your goal, no matter what small scale of politics it is, that's just you being naive. And I hate to be that raw and real with people, but when you live in the real world, we can't all just sing Kumbaya. There may be some need for you to navigate and play politics a little bit while still not losing yourself. I've never gone and tried to be inauthentic and be a different version of myself, but I have been willing to have conversations, stay and go to dinner, stay to go to happy hour, and build relationships.
How do you make it intact? I forgot what the full quote is that someone said. But they were talking about the fact that you don't have to sacrifice your authenticity to be able to do everything that you kind of talked about. And if you're going to make it, make sure you make it intact. How do you do that? Because that's one of the hardest things for people to do. Because like I said, it's like, if I do this, I feel like I'm playing politics. If I do this, I feel like there's a baggage and a burden that comes with me having to do all these different bits and pieces. And when I do that, I don't feel like I'm being authentic. When I do that, I don't feel like I'm being real.
So how do I say this? I think that the term of being real has been kind of pushed to an extreme, right? Because you don't have to be, like, you can still be yourself without saying all the things that are in your head, right? You can still be yourself. You can still have a professional conversation. You can still connect with somebody and make a deal happen and be authentic. You don't have to say all the things that are in the back of your head to say, well, I just got to keep it real. I just got to keep it 100. It's like, well, this is a business transaction, or you're in a workplace. Not everything that you may have in your head or how you act outside is for the workplace. And so I think it's important for everyone to think about, what does authentic actually mean? Being authentic means that you're being true to yourself, But again, who you are may be multifaceted. We're not, you don't just have one dimension. So I think it's about, what does authenticity mean to me, not to what society thinks about or anyone else. What does authenticity mean to me? What are my values? What are things that are important to me? When you start to think about that, it's less about, okay, just keeping it real and keeping it 100. It's more about, how am I coming across as myself? And so when I think about the meetings that I've been to and the after hours that I've been to, I'm still myself. I'm able to talk about my background. I'm able to talk about the things that excite me, the things that are important to me, how I'm doing in my career. I'm still speaking about all of those things, but I'm still there having organic conversations with the people who are making the business decisions. So I think it's important for us to get out of the one-track mind of what authenticity and keeping it real means, because again, not everything that's outside needs to be in the workplace, right? So it's, what does authenticity actually mean to you?
So Julia came with a good word today. Like, I feel like I'm in church, like, just like, just taking one and just.
Pass the collection plate, collecting the tithes. Amen.
Now, I think it's I love the way that you keep it real. I love the approach that you kind of have, because I think it is very easy to lead into wanting to have a very idealistic view of the world. But the reality is, especially when you're operating in the West, that's not how things work. And you need to know, you need to understand the lay of the land and therefore adapt to it. But like you said, you can adapt to it in a way that you don't lose yourself. It's just different parts of yourself that you need to pull out at different instances and different times. She'll be able to help you to get you to where you want to get to. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to stay stuck. And they're going to be more frustrated. It doesn't necessarily serve or help anyone else. And just before we come to the end, which I've thoroughly enjoyed this, when it comes to time's flown by so quickly, how do you define leadership?
Leadership is creating a space where people want to follow. They're not commanded to do so. So when I think about the best leaders that I have worked with and worked for, there was something about how they were able to inspire our teams and be vulnerable with us and communicate certain messages that we wanted to do what they were asking of us. And, contrary to popular belief, you're not a leader if people don't want to follow you. And so, they created a space where it's like, hey, I'm willing to do what this person is asking of us because I believe in their vision, or I believe in the message that they're sharing, or they're inspiring or motivating me to want to do better, to do something different. And so the person never had to command us to do anything, or the individuals, they never had to command us to do us or force us to do anything. The fact is we just wanted to because we believed in what they said and we believed in their direction. So that's true leadership.
And where can people find out more about you, about the work that you do? I know you work with athletes, but there's still a lot of other content that you kind of put out there that people can definitely get involved in and they would enjoy. So where can people find more about you?
Absolutely. Thank you. So they can actually find me on the web. My website is rockcareer.com. They can also follow me on my personal side at The Julia Rock on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and then follow my company at Rock Career on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So they can reach me on any of those channels, and I'd be happy to talk to them.
All that information will be available in the show notes. And without forgetting, like Julia said, this message is to get more and more out there. So look her up. Book her for some speaking engagements. See if you want a real talk in your organization, someone who's just going to be very, very straight with it. Hello, Julia, because you know what you're going to get. You've heard some of it right now, and that's what you need. People need that reality dose. They don't need the sugarcoat. No, let's just keep it real. So I really appreciate you coming through. Really appreciate all the gems that you kind of dropped. And I'm going to enjoy listening back to this episode, and I'm sure the listeners are as well. So appreciate you, Julia.
Thank you so much again for having me. This was such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
This is Everyday Leadership. We'll see you next week.